Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first show of 2018. I'm Joseph Rapp.
And I'm Nelson Ulemsky, and we've got a pretty good show lined up for you today. Today is mostly going to be about looking ahead.
Yes.
We will be doing a little bit of looking back. We've got some events to review, mostly just Daytona Kart Week, but we also have some big news about the 206 Cup, the Triple Crown.
Yeah, the street racing Triple Crown of karting, and a lot of other things as well.
Including some personal changes to how we're going to be presenting this to you.
Yeah, you may have noticed over the last day or two that we have been going through a lot of major changes on this channel, and you're just listening to one of hopefully the many programs we're going to be bringing to you here. Of course, right now you're listening to Radio Kart, the Quad City edition, but hopefully here in the upcoming weeks we'll have Radio Kart Northeast edition coming up with host Anthony bringing you the action from all over the Northeast area karting-wise. Some other potential changes coming in the future. Nothing rock solid yet, but hopefully added vintage karting program maybe added in somewhere in the mix too. So a lot of fun. It's going to be a cool channel, and you're watching the new karting TV.
Yeah. So those are kind of our changes mostly to Radio Kart. New Northeast show, some vintage specials, and of course a continuation of the Radio Kart that you know, but kind of rebranded as a Quad Cities Radio Kart. So with all that in mind, what would you like to talk about, like what kind of content will be on our new YouTube channel, branded now as Karting TV?
Well, I mean, we'll have the YouTube videos we've always had with the 61 Kartway races. We'll have the Radio Kart shows that you and me have been doing. Obviously, the Northeast Radio Kart will be basically the same show, just a different area. So we're hoping to kind of expand our channel over to the Northeast, get some people interested. And, you know, I just think it's going to be exciting, and hopefully we can get some vintage guys listening in too and get a vintage part of the channel hooked up. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, so it sounds like we've got a lot of work ahead of us, I guess you could say.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about anything else about our own changes to our brand and such, or would you want to get into the news now?
Well, first, I want to say thanks, Nelson, for making the new masthead and everything. Looks spectacular.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to jump into some news now and get the ball rolling. So 2018 is going to be spectacular. 206 Cup has released all of their schedules as of today for the new 206 Cup series. Actually, it won't be called 206 Cup anymore in 2018, too.
Yeah, what are they going to be calling it now anyways? Or has that not yet really been, I don't want to say addressed, because it's obviously being addressed. I just haven't heard any conclusions about that myself yet.
So they have not decided on a name for the series yet. My assumption is they're going to bring in a sponsor of some sort, and that would be the new series name.
I see.
But the series itself is exactly the same. You know, the same people are running it. Greg Jasperson. I know Steve Vermeer has a lot to do with that series. Same people are running it. They've obviously expanded into Florida, so it's going to be a really exciting series and a fun time, I think, for everybody involved with the what's now called the 206 Cup.
Yeah. So, of course, a couple of weeks ago, the 206 Cup for Florida, they released their schedule.
Yes.
And then even more recently than that, 206
North,
thank you, North released. And actually just only an hour ago, the Northern Cup released their schedule.
Midwest.
Oh, right.
Cup.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I got the phrasing mixed up.
Yep.
Northern had been released. Now we finally got Central.
The Central, the Central Division.
So schedule for Central is as follows. The season will kick off the weekend of May 4th at Concept Holmar Speedway in Norway, Illinois.
Which is going to be an interesting race.
I want to get to that. Yes, it really will. But the second stop will be at the Mid-State Kart Club in Springfield, the first weekend of June. Month later, the weekend of June 29th, the East Lansing Kart Track in Michigan hosts the third round.
I believe that's up in David Cole's area from eKarting News,
and
if
that's
I'm not mistaken.
New for the 206 Cup, is it not?
Yeah, that's a new track for the 206 Cup, so it'll be interesting to see.
And then OVKA hosts the finale for the central version of the 206 Cup in Camden, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Joseph had alluded to this and interrupted me.
Yes, well, I got so excited, Nelson.
Yeah, okay, so those of you who may remember, the date of the Concept Haulers race may sound familiar.
Yeah.
This is the exact same date as the event for the Northern Cup. This means combined grid.
Yeah, so the really interesting thing here, Nelson, is that's the first race of the 206 Cup season.
Yeah.
And it'll almost be a preview for the end of this season because it'll be the second biggest race to the Grand Nationals because it'll be the only other race with 2 series involved. Of course, Grand Nationals will have 3 with the Florida division. But 2 series coming together, that's going to be exciting. And
just to interrupt for a moment, those of you who watch NASCAR would say that this is very similar to the K&N East and West series. Both of them are their own separate series, but like in 2018 anyways, both those series will actually be racing together at Iowa Speedway in Newton and Gateway just east of St. Louis, supporting the IndyCar race, actually. So it's kind of like that. Yeah,
it's they're bringing, except it's right off the bat to get them off to a really good start, and I think it's a brilliant idea, really. It'll be a good preview for the season and stuff like that. But there is another bomb that needs to be addressed here, because last year when I was racing 206 Cup at 61 Kartway, Greg Jasperson made an announcement of 61 holding the first ever night race for 206 Cup racing. Now, I don't know if that's still in the game plan or not, but with the schedule release, I'll be interested to see how that works out if Greg decides to end up doing that.
Yeah, no, night racing is so fantastic almost anywhere you race, but I have to say there's something special about it at 61.
Well, they have great lighting.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a fantastic track, and you know, everybody that goes to 61 seems to have a good review about it. I do know they had a night 206 Cup did a special non-points night race at Concept Haulers a couple of years ago. So that was actually a pretty cool event to be a part of, but it'll be cool for them to have an actual points event here this year if they decide to keep doing it. I haven't talked to Greg lately, but I imagine he's still got it in the game plan.
Yeah, and, you know, if there's, like, an issue of, but the nights would be too late for that or something, there's a new American only a few miles from the track, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There's a new American hotel.
I mean, I shouldn't say, like, new, because it, like, opened early 2017, but...
Right, that's pretty new, yeah. So, you know, if you're looking for a place to stay and you want to be in the 206 Cup at 61, there you go. Nelson just gave you the plug there. So, no reason to stay away now. We haven't really talked about the Florida division much. We don't really have many connections down there, Nelson. True. But I think it's probably important that we talk about that schedule. But speaking of Florida, we should probably mention, there's someone not on the show today, Nelson. His name's Carter Pease, and he couldn't be here for, a good reason, I guess. But we have to say congratulations, Carter, on your 3rd place at Daytona Kart Week. He finished 3rd in the Yamaha class, and I believe it was an all-top kart podium, if I remember right. And he got a little trophy and everything. It was... good to see a fellow radio kart guy on the podium at Daytona.
Not just fellow radio kart, but fellow, I guess you could say, Midwestern. I wouldn't say Quad Cityan, because I'm not really Quad Cityan myself, but someone from the area. It's very cool to see them find success at such a big event like Daytona. Yeah, for sure. You know, and when you're getting beat by Alexander Kardashian, I'm sure there's, not a whole lot more you can do with the amount of money I'm sure they throw at the karting program. Yeah. So I see you have the 2018 Florida schedule up there for the 206 Cup, Nelson. Yeah. So while we're on the topic of Florida and karting, thought we might address the 206 Cup for Florida and their schedule. Now, this was announced December 20th, actually, so a couple of weeks ago. But on this topic, might as well review the Ocala Grand Prix in Ocala, Florida, of course, opens the season off the weekend of March 2nd, and then nearly a month-long gap until the second event in Jacksonville at the 103rd Street Sports Complex, May 18th.
Mm-hmm.
And the season ends the weekend of June 22nd at the Bushnell Motorsports Park. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not familiar with any of those tracks, but, you know, for those of you that are and are listening, if you're familiar with those tracks, you know, kind of hit us up, because I'd like to see some video of those tracks and everything that's going on, Nelson. I mean, I've heard some pretty cool things from WKA events down in that area about, especially like Oceana. I think that's a pretty big karting track for the area.
Yeah, no, that'll definitely be cool to see. And I think originally when the 206 Cup that we're familiar with here in the Midwest began, it was kind of like synonymous with that. 206 is a Midwestern thing. But branching out into Florida now, I feel like that we're going to see the idea of having these regional series kind of explode almost.
Yeah. Well, since we're on the Florida and Daytona, I thought I'd let you take away this part of the show now, because, you know, Daytona Kart Week just happened, and Margay had their racing classes, and I know you were following that very closely, Nelson.
Yes, yeah. So, of course, down at Daytona Kart Week, Margay brought their Ignite series, which we've talked so much about on the show. Kind of like pre-setup karts, kind of almost... everything's even, down to the driver. If anyone missed the news, there are actually two IndyCar racers that entered in that. Zach Veach, who, that might be a name you're unfamiliar with, but Zach Veach is actually going to be racing for Andretti Autosport this year, and it sounds like he has a 3-year contract. And Gaby Chavez, who will be racing for the new team, Harding Racing. Now, they both... Zach Veach, I wouldn't say he did that great, considering he is a professional IndyCar driver. He's kind of more mired in the mid-pack.
Yeah.
As far as, nothing against guys that race in the mid-pack. I mean, there's a lot of good racing there, but as far as an IndyCar driver goes, you kind of expect more from him.
Yeah.
Gaby Chavez, on the other hand, he was pretty much in the top 3 in almost every session, even the practices.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he was really giving it to the competition. He ended up in the top 3 at the end of the day, mixing it up with Jordan Bernlohr, actually.
Yeah. All 206 Cup racer right there.
Yeah, so I can't really speak for Veach, but I do know that Chavez, his whole program in that, was actually financed by his IndyCar team, Harding Racing. Mm-hmm. Now, I keep talking about Harding Racing, and I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent here, but Harding Racing is a brand spanking new IndyCar team. You might be unfamiliar with the name, but they entered in the Indy 500 last year, as well as the 600-kilometer race in Texas 2 weeks later, and the 500-mile race in Pocono. Literally only those 3 races, with brand new personnel, brand new owners, the new operation. And they finished all 3 races, which all 3 are notorious for their attrition. So this was quite an accomplishment for them, and really shows off both the professionalism of Gaby Chavez and this organization.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, a bit of a tangent, but I have tremendous respect for this organization, and it's so cool to see them doing karts like this.
Yeah, well, you know, it may have been cool to see the IndyCar drivers out there, Nelson, but it sparked a little bit of a debate I saw on Facebook, and I think you, me, and Carter had kind of touched up on this on our last episode of Radio Kart. It was about professionalism in karting, and when you have guys like Gaby Chavez, Zach Veach, even Jordan Bernlohr, who race cars and
Trans Am specifically.
Yeah, and are considered more professional than your average karter, I would suppose.
Wait, are you calling Carter P's average?
No, not like that, not like that.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
I couldn't resist.
Let me rephrase that. Your average karter, Carter with a K. way. But, with those drivers in there, people were thinking maybe there should be a separate class for those more professional drivers. And personally, I don't think so. I always hate splitting up classes. I think it's like the most disgusting thing to do. Like the more, the merrier.
Now, when you say that, I just for clarity, when you say split them up, do you mean like race together?
I mean race separately. When you split up classes to race separately, I don't think that's a lot of fun. There's not a lot of competitive. That's how you thin out the competitors in the field, kind of. That. And, I know guys were talking about, well, it's so hard to compete against these IndyCar guys. They know what they're doing. I'm like, I would be honored. I would be honored to compete against an IndyCar guy. Like, I want to go out there and show them I can possibly kick their butt. Or if they kick my butt, it shows me how much further I could go to improve myself in karting, you know? So, I think it's wonderful to compete against, professional drivers in karting, personally.
And you know what? That reminded me of something, because we were kind of talking about this before the show, but I wholeheartedly agree with you. Now, I say that because when I first stepped in a kart, yes, it was a rental. It was a Rusty Wallace go-kart experience in Iowa Speedway.
Yeah.
Now, I can't recall the guy's name, but I remember after that, there's this guy that got out. He asked me, where do you race? I'm like, that was my first time ever in one of those. And he's like, oh, wow, you're pretty good. I actually used to test Indy cars in California.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I actually raced against a guy like this. So, no, as far as the whole yardstick thing, I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Well, yeah, and think about events like Rock Island where we've seen professional drivers come through. Yeah. Scott Hargrove, who has a driving Porsche Cup this year, right?
No, he's racing in Pirelli World Challenge.
Pirelli World Challenge.
Oh, yeah, and I'll talk about that later, because that's actually a kind of big thing, I think, because of his connection to karting.
Yeah.
So let's finish this discussion up first.
Yeah, but, that professionalism that's there in races like Rock Island, Daytona Kart Week, like what used to be the RoboPong 200, where you had IndyCar drivers competing regularly, I don't think the professionalism of the drivers ruins a karting event. To Carter's point in our last Radio Kart episode, it's the professionalism of the teams.
Yeah.
When you have a multi-million-dollar team come in, or not multi-million-dollar maybe, I don't know the finances behind it, but when you have a team like Top Kart come in with all these people and all these resources to be able to make a pit stop in something like the RoboPong 200, it makes it harder for guys like you and me who are one or two man, operations to compete against them.
Yeah.
And you eventually turn your eyes away from the event and you say, I can't do that. It's too expensive. But at Daytona Kart Week, it's a different story. It's a different story with the team because Margay's providing everything.
Right.
And, everybody has the same equipment. So I think the professionalism there should be most welcomed.
Yes, and to your point, I had said that the Gaby Chavez entry was financed by Harding Racing. Mm-hmm. This is a team that raced the Indy 500, and anyone who follows that knows that it has gotten incredibly expensive. So they have more than the necessary expenses to race Margay Ignite. So, but like Joseph was saying, it's Margay Ignite. You can't really throw money at it and instantly go faster.
No.
It's a category that's down to skill, not about team preparation.
I mean, look at the tires they use.
Yeah. So in that regard of a series like the Margay Ignite, I embrace it. It is awesome to see guys like this, and it really showed how good Gaby Chavez is, at least in a kart, anyways. Yeah.
It was. I thought it was fantastic to see IndyCar guys getting in the go-karts, showing their background, and I know a lot of IndyCar guys have karting backgrounds. Yeah,
most of them do.
Our flagman Fred talks about Graham Rahal at Rock Island all the time, like he. Graham Rahal, when he was racing at Rock Island, Fred says, like, oh, my dad will never let me drive for that team. It's fun to listen to Fred talk about, those big names that he got to talk to when he was flagging at Rock Island.
We should have Fred on the show sometime.
We really should.
Yeah.
He'd be a great storyteller on the show. He really would.
But, so that's pretty much like...
Yeah, that's pretty much it for Daytona Kart Week, I believe.
But no, we kind of still have that discussion going about the professionalism of it. Unless, did you have more to say about that? Or
I mean...
Because I kind of wanted to address this little thing about the whole issue of breaking them up and stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah. I know you had kind of an idea of how you could break them up without necessarily getting rid of the bigger racing classes.
Right, yeah. So I don't know. I didn't think about all the details of this. This is kind of more of an idea I just thought up when Joseph presented this issue to me before the show. So there are probably flaws here, but nonetheless, anyone who watches sports car racing, specifically GT3 type stuff, and by that I mean Pirelli World Challenge, or the Blank Paint series in Europe, like the Sprint or the Endurance series, will know that it's all GT3 machinery, as in all the cars are equal, or, well, as close as they can be. Yet it's a multi-class series, but separated only on driver merit. Now, when I say separated, I just mean by class. Everyone races together, whether you are pro or an amateur, or in the case of the Endurance series where you need to have multiple drivers, you can have an entirely pro team, or a pro-am team, or even just an amateur team. Everyone's on track together, but they're scored separately. So I think a solution like that.
It's like what we did in the clone days at 61, really. We had a clone light, a clone heavy, and an open clone class.
Yes.
We raced all at the same time, but we raced all at the same time because we didn't want to have such a small group of guys to race against that it wasn't any fun. So we'd have clone light guys mixing it up in there with the clone heavy guys, and every once in a while you might get a little frustrated with a guy that you weren't really racing for the championship. But I thought it was fun to have the bigger field sizes and have somebody to at least race against throughout the whole race.
The only thing that would be at fault in your comparison is that you kind of do have the performance changes of like weight, or in the open that the the engines are changed.
With what you're talking about, there wouldn't be performance; it would be driver skill.
Exactly. So I guess what you could say a more appropriate comparison in karting would be if you let say senior 206 heavy guys race against 206 master guys.
Yeah.
Because pretty much everything is the same except for driver age.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's an excellent comparison. Or if you wanted to get like to the shifter kart level, letting S1 and S2 guys race against each other.
Yeah,
same karts, same engines, but different skill levels. If you let those guys race against each other, the only thing that separates them is skill level.
Yeah, and it's just, I say, like, I didn't think about all the details of this. And I say that because I know some people kind of frown at the idea of having mixed class racing and karting, especially at the sprint racing scene. Like, of course it works at the endurance level. I mean, everyone does mixed class racing at endurance. But as far as sprint racing goes, I've heard people say, but no, this guy was in a totally other class. He was getting involved in a battle he shouldn't have and stuff. But, hey, it's just my idea. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea. I think it's a neat idea. Try something new every once in a while. And if it doesn't work, you can always revert back to the old thing if that's what was working better. So, not a bad idea at all, I don't think. On to some local stuff, Nelson. 61 Kartway has not released their 2018 schedule yet.
Yeah, come on, Tony, if you're listening.
Tony, release the 2018 schedule. No, I know he's actually looking to have a meeting before the 2018 season at some point.
Yeah.
I texted him about that. And
you did?
I did, and he said he was going to try and get some stuff ironed out. He also said he'd be putting a link onto or he would try to put a link onto our YouTube page on the 61 Kartways website.
Oh, that's nice.
That'd be really cool, too. Yeah. But back to 61 Kartway and kind of the news there. I was talking to some guys, a.k.a. Gage Kemp, and we were actually doing some stuff together the other night, and I said we were talking about weight classes. And I heard he told me a rumor, we might split up weights, we might not. And, I think it would be good not to split up the weights at 61 just because I think we're finally in that growth stage where we got 10 guys on a weekly basis.
By not split them up, you mean like having medium and heavy race together?
I mean just having one class all together.
Okay, I see. I see.
Like, I don't think... Yeah. I think at 61 right now, it's just best to have one class right now.
Yeah, only thing is, that's kind of hurt heavy guys like me. I mean, I don't throw any weights on the cart, and I'm weighing in at like 395, so.
Yeah, I know they want to drop the weight to 375, I think, is the plan.
I mean, I'll live. It's not like it's going to turn me away or anything. Of course I'll still race. I'm just saying it's going to be, only if I can lose 20 pounds.
20 more pounds. It looks like I'm on an all-salad diet for the next year.
Yeah, not to get off on a tangent, though, I actually have lost 5 pounds since the end of the season.
High five. But, yeah, we don't know the 2018 schedule except for the 206 Cup race at 61. But it's going to be a fun season. I think we'll see another couple backwards races in there. I think that would be interesting to see.
Oval race. Come on,
I think absolutely nobody else besides you is in for an oval race. But hey, you can bring it up at the meeting. But it should be a fun season.
I'll just bribe people to vote yes to an oval race.
Oh my goodness! Anybody racing at 61 this year, do not take the money. Don't do it.
Oh my god.
But Nick Ockenfeld should be a shoo-in to compete for the championship because he's got a free year of racing. So
he said he wanted to do a ton of other stuff too, didn't he?
He did say that.
But
when you have a free year of racing,
yeah, I mean, like Nick's a bit of a mystery. Nick, if you're listening, please let us know. What are your plans for 2018?
But it should be a fun season with Gage moving up. Morgan Schuler's going to be behind the wheel of a 206. Our friend Carter will be behind the wheel of a 206.
To be honest, I'm kind of scared. These are a lot of fast guys.
It's a lot of fast guys, but the competition is more than welcome.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Always looking to get better. Actually saw Justin Wishart posting a lot of carts for sale a little while ago, and I texted him, I asked him, are you getting out of karting? And he said, and his dad replied, he said, no, we're not getting out of karting. We got something in store for 2018. So
oh, God.
It could be scary racing against the Wishards in 2018. I don't know. They have something up their sleeve.
Maybe this just means they're moving on to shifter stuff, maybe?
I think it means they're getting a new cart for 206 racing, is what I think it means.
I swear, everyone's getting a new cart, and here I am, stuck with my old shifter thing from 2012. I'm going to make it work, though. I will kick everyone's butt with this old shifter cart.
All right.
Mark my words. I will get it there. The little shifter cart that could.
Oh, my goodness. Everybody, if you can't beat Nelson's shifter cart, come on, we can beat him. We can force him to the Coyote side.
Oh, God,
we can force him.
No.
Or if Nick's listening, he's like, no, go with an Ionic Edge, man. Like,
yeah, actually, to be honest, if I do change, I am kind of leaning more towards an Ionic Edge, but I'm keeping my options open.
To get back on track,
we were rumbling there for real.
Other news, Rock Island Grand Prix will have a meeting this Tuesday for the Rock Island Grand Prix, and they have a lot of stuff that needs to be done on their to-do list as far as people taking over, getting ready to take over positions, getting sponsorships for the event. If you can get volunteers to sign up this early to help set up and tear down the track, that's great. Normally you can't get people that early, but they're looking for a lot of help. If you can go to the meeting, it's in downtown Rock Island at the Holiday Inn in one of the meeting rooms upstairs. So they're looking for a lot of help. So if you can, make it out to that. I feel like we're forgetting something to talk about, though. Now.
I do, too. So let's review. We talked about the channel changes.
Yep.
We talked about news regarding the 206 Cup. Talked about Daytona Kart Week.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to talk a bit about the Triple Crown.
Oh, right.
But before we did that, right, because I had we had brought up kind of Scott Hargrove offhand.
You're right.
But I don't know. I just like looking at these guys who like race professionally, do karting, and then kind of like what the future has in store for them. Kind of like Gaby and Chavez. Hargrove, if you're unfamiliar, raced Indy Lights a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And
when he was done with Lights, he still came back and did karting, specifically Rock Island Grand Prix Yamaha class. And he absolutely kicked everyone's ass, which was amazing to see.
Yeah.
A lot of talent. So he had been racing some Porsche GT3 Cup stuff up in Canada, kind of like a entry-level type series. I shouldn't say entry-level, but it's like you know,
it wasn't as professional
as
I'm sure.
Series,
yeah,
like it's not a destination type of thing. It's like this guy raced Indy Lights. He whooped everyone's ass at Rock Island. He deserves better than this.
Yeah,
and he is actually going to be racing for Path Motorsports in the Pirelli World Challenge this season. Which Pirelli World Challenge is that huge touring GT3 series that travels all around North America, usually supporting the IndyCar series on the road courses.
Yeah.
A very amazing series with a lot of different cars and a lot of different drivers. If you want someone to follow him because he's a really cool guy.
Yeah, I know he talked to you at the Rock Island banquet, and he's recognized you at a couple events. And
2 times at Toronto.
Yeah, so really, I mean, it's amazing some of the connections you can come up with in the karting world. But to move on, the Triple Crown of karting. I can't believe we almost forgot this, Nelson. This is like the biggest. This is like the biggest thing in karting since last year's Rock Island Grand Prix. Okay.
I feel like you can say that every year. This is the biggest thing.
This is the biggest thing in karting since Daytona Kart Week. Yes. Oh, okay.
That literally happened a week ago.
Yeah. But Quincy Grand Prix, Quincy in the Park has been confirmed. It's happening. They have a date. They are finalizing classes now. There's going to be a Briggs 206 heavy and medium class, a master's class, I believe. They were having like a middle ground class from between guys that were too young or too old for masters or something. I don't think they'll do that class.
Okay,
because that'd be splitting it up quite a bit.
And that sounds quite strange. And I honestly feel like they have it quite split up as it is, considering all the junior categories, the fact that you have masters and seniors separated. So they're good now. They don't need to do that.
But if anybody's seen pictures of the park, holy cow, the pavement looks silky smooth. I mean,
and I actually haven't. I still need to look into this.
Oh man, people have been posting pictures of the baby's bottom.
I mean, I've seen a few, but
drink wine while racing, and none of it would spill on you. It would be fantastic.
I was gonna say you don't strike me as a wine guy, Joseph.
I'm not, but and you're not supposed to drink and drive, so don't get any ideas, guys.
So don't listen to him. Don't listen to him.
But if you had a fishbowl on board and you were worried about spilling water, it's a very smooth track.
What does that mean? Don't tell me you're bringing your pet fish to the track now, are you?
I am. Swimmy is coming along.
Swimmy. Oh my
Elkhart Grand Prix is also happening again next year. The River Walk, I went to it last year. A fantastic event. I had a lot of fun. And, of course, Rock Island, the Rock Island Grand Prix. And that's it. In my book, that's the Triple Crown, Quincy, Elkhart, Rock Island. Now, there's been discussions online that the Triple Crown should be between the Brickyard, Quincy, and Rock Island. And I personally do not agree with that at all.
Okay.
First off, the Brickyard is technically not a street race.
Yeah.
Second of all, I like the idea of the 3 tracks with history, a karting history behind them to have the Triple Crown. But I want to know your thoughts on it, Nelson.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess in that idea of what constitutes the Triple Crown, if you look at that term's use in IndyCar, it's used to apply. I mean, it's not used anymore, but it always was used in reference to the 3 500-mile races that IndyCar had, which kind of varied, but is usually thought of as being the Indianapolis 500, the California 500, and the Michigan 500. Or trade one of those for the Pocono 500. Point is, those 500-mile races, nothing else was that long. It made those events special. They had something common
that made them special.
That made them special that none of the other events had. I think I kind of agree with what Joseph is saying. Triple Crown in karting needs to have something like a unifying factor of that. So let that be the street circuits. Plus, that's not really balanced if you let Indiana to have 2 Triple Crown events.
That's what I'm saying. You can't have 2 Triple Crown events, 2 would be in Illinois, though, I guess, with Quincy and Rock Island.
That's a good point.
But my point is, I think the street racing background of them all, people said, well, the Brickyard was like a street racing event. Well, I'm like,
but it's not. It's Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
It's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and from what I saw from the photos, it's not like there were huge crowds of fans there. Like, I'm pretty sure the track was closed off to the public as far as the stand seating went. And so I think there weren't as many fans at that race as you'd see at, like, the Rock Island Grand Prix or Quincy in the Park or Elkhart. I think those are cool events because you go to them and you go, oh my gosh, look at all the people watching me. And then you crash into a barrier and you're like, oh my gosh, I should probably pay attention to my driving. Nick.
No.
Straight away.
That wasn't really his fault, though. I just couldn't resist the chance. But I was going to say, I guess we're going to get picky. You could totally rebrand the thing as the Grand Slam of karting, and you could then say all four are a part of that. Because, like, I don't think NASCAR ever really had a Triple Crown, but they had the Grand Slam, which would have been Spring Talladega, Daytona 500, the Coca-Cola 600, and
Bristol.
Bristol was part of the...
Bristol, the night race at Bristol.
Oh, Southern 500 was the other one.
Yeah.
And in the 90s, I believe they actually counted the Brickyard 400 as being part of the Grand Slam.
Yeah.
So, you just don't restrict it to 3, call it the Grand Slam, and invite all 3 of them in. Yeah. 4 of them in.
Yeah. I think part of my problem, though, with putting the Brickyard in there is the fact that it doesn't have a karting background. Like, it's been around for 1 year. It's a cool event. Don't get me wrong. I love the race at Indy, but I don't think if you're gonna do street races, I'd do Goodland, Rock Island, Quincy, Elkhart. Those are 4 karting events that have a lot of history behind them. They all have cash up for grabs. I don't believe Indy even had cash up for grabs as far as who won.
Yeah. Well, I just want to check my facts here. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I was going to say...
He's got the iPhone out, folks.
I was going to say, this might actually just continue with the whole tradition of... oh my gosh, where did this go? This should be easier to find than this. I am so sorry. Joseph, you keep talking while I find this.
Well,
okay, found it.
As he says that.
Thank you. Well was enough to fill the
gap.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, this actually kind of continues with the tradition of just Indy being kind of thrown in there as a special event.
Yeah.
Because the Brickyard Grand Prix only began in '94. And almost instantly is considered part of the Grand Slam in NASCAR. Yeah. So... continue with the Indy tradition, I guess.
Yeah, people just think, well, it's Indy, it's been around forever, that it should be considered part of everybody's Grand Slam. I'm sorry, folks, but because it has an awesome Indianapolis 500 history, does not mean it has an awesome NASCAR history, or an awesome sports car racing history.
The sports car thing absolutely flops.
Or an awesome karting history. Like,
hopefully that doesn't flop.
I'm hoping it doesn't flop. I'd love to race there. It would be a fantastic time. I have no doubt.
Yeah.
But I don't think it deserves to be in the place of the Triple Crown in karting yet. We have a couple races that have been around for 20 years plus, are making return after a couple of years hiatus. Quincy was around, I think, for 20 or 25 years before they stopped their Grand Prix. So, okay. Oh, Nelson's got something to say.
I mean, kinda. I guess the other thing too, at least in when you look at the Triple Crown or even Grand Slam in NASCAR, whatever big set of events you want to call it, there was something. It wasn't just like a title for these big events. It was almost like a mini series, almost. Like if in IndyCar, if you could win all 3 of them in the same season, you would get like $1 million. And this was like in the 70s and 80s, so that was a ton of money back then.
Interesting, so, you should mention.
I was going to say that the whole idea of the Triple Crown. There's also some prize thing in NASCAR with the Grand Slam. Mm-hmm. My point is, in having a Grand Slam or a Triple Crown or whatever, it's beyond just simply notoriety of the events. There is some award for how well you run at those. So I ask you, Joseph. Because otherwise, personally, I don't really give that much.
Yeah,
I don't really care.
Interesting, you should mention it, Nelson.
Any point in doing well in all 3 of them.
Because there have been some rumors circulated that Rock Island, Quincy, and the Brickyard were talking with each other about making a series of some sort.
Okay.
Like I said, I personally would not like to see the Brickyard race in the series. I'd like to see Elkhart in the series, but they are talking about maybe potentially a prize for the series winner. There are drawbacks to that, though, and there are benefits. The benefits are you have a series. You have people that will for sure go to each event.
Yeah.
The drawback is, because it's a series, you may have people that decide not to compete in the event because they don't want to mess up the series points or they don't want to get involved in professionalism that has now become associated with the event. So it's a double-edged sword.
I was going to also say my issue with that would be kind of like with your list of what you're saying already. Add on to that, it then kind of takes these events that you think of as it's prestigious to win this, assigning that to a championship. And then with the championship, you have points. So then you're thinking you're riding second, and it's like, you know what? I'm going to get a lot of points for this. I don't need to take any chances.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it kind of diminishes the uniqueness of these events.
Exactly. So it's a double-edged sword. Honestly, I think if you did run a series, people with these three races, with Elkhart, Quincy, and Rock Island, wouldn't care as much just because the races are so cool to go to. You'd end up going to them anyway. As a local racer, you'd go to Rock Island anyway just because there's a lot of money on the line for just winning that race. And, I mean, there's a lot of incentive to perform well in front of the home crowd.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would affect it too much, but you gotta ask those questions and keep them in mind when you're changing things up on the scene, I think.
Yeah. Now, one thing, though, and I think this will fix a lot of these problems, actually, because consider everything that you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
All the faults that you have pointed out are in treating this as a series. IndyCar, with their Triple Crown, never treated it as a series. What it was that you get this bonus if you won all three.
If you won, right.
Yeah.
And I think that would be something that they should consider.
Right, because then you don't have to worry about points. You don't have to worry about interfering with the professionalism.
Exactly.
It's like if you happen to win all three.
The problem with karting is, because you're running so many different classes, what do you consider winning all three? Do you have to win all three in 206? Or can you mix and match between Yamaha and 206 and maybe a shifter kart class? You know, so if I was going to do it, and if you're running two 206 classes like they do at Rock Island, then things get really confusing. Well, I won the first one, but I didn't win the second one. Oh, good point.
I suppose in reference to this, look at because when we've been talking about Triple Crown, I've been talking about IndyCar Triple Crown.
Right.
If you talk internationally about Triple Crown in motorsport, what everyone thinks of is the Indy 500, the Monaco Grand Prix, and Le Mans 24.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mentioned this because if you can do that, winning Le Mans does not mean winning it outright. At least right now, they have 4 different classes, and they've always had at least 2 classes in Le Mans. And to win is simply winning in that category. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know. If you're going to look at how that was addressed in the past from a global perspective, you could say a win's a win no matter the category.
Right. Well, I don't know. I think no matter where they go with this Triple Crown thing, it should be something that helps build the sport up and stuff like that. But you sound like you got one more thing you want to say now.
I do. One last thing. I thought, because we're talking about this, especially an event like Rock Island, has so many freaking classes.
Oh, man.
So
16,
many.
I believe, last year.
What if this was, because you're saying that right now, this is the event organizers themselves trying to organize this, right? What if it was a group like Briggs & Stratton themselves that kind of financed this?
Right.
And kind of keeping with the win thing, not the championship, but simply winning. What if they go ahead...
Put a bonus for winning in 206 classes at all 3 events?
Exactly, yeah. So 206 only. So you don't have to worry about, like, a win in shifter counts, or a win in Yamaha, or a win in vintage counts.
You still have to worry about the medium and heavy, though. Or is it just simply a win neither to medium or to heavy classes?
A win in anything that is 206 powered.
Okay. I like that idea. I think that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
To go... we were talking about the Triple Crown stuff. I was going through Facebook comments on the whole thing, and some people didn't want Rock Island as part of the Triple Crown.
What? Why?
It's too rough.
Bull.
Well, and I was looking through comments, and I'm not going to mention who said it, but I thought it was hilarious, and I thought it was a very good point. Someone logged on, and they said, it's a street race. What are you talking about? It's going to be rough. I logged on and I was like, at Rock Island, you're going so fast you fly over the bumps anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even feel it. If anybody here has ever raced at the Sprint Kart Speedway, they know the definition of rough. My first time at Rock Island, I was like, this is the smoothest track I've ever been on in my life. So,
yeah. And I know I keep bringing up sports cars in this episode, but like Sebring. Sebring is probably the bumpiest racetrack in the world. And I've heard some people say that might actually be like the biggest endurance event in North America. Because I know people are going to say, oh, what about Daytona 24? Well, you see, that reputation was kind of diminished on an international scale during the Grand Am days. Yet Sebring always kept its international appeal. So, yeah, so what if it's bumpy? It's still a big deal.
Yeah. And I think, anybody who went to Elkhart last year knows that, like, yeah, the track was relatively smooth. I mean, they had some new pavement in places and stuff. But there were a couple, like, areas where when you went over, like, the intersections and the braking zones, it was like, holy cow, I'm braking over a bump here. Like, they were bigger than the bump. Yeah. They felt bigger than the bumps at Rock Island just because of the forces that were acting on you.
It felt like a ramp is what you're saying.
Yes, it felt like a ramp. I've raced on ramps before. They're fun to race on. They hurt a lot, but they're fun to race on. But, yeah, I think... if you're gonna have street races involved in your Triple Crown, you gotta accept the roughness factor of it. I mean, street races equal rough tracks. You're not gonna get around that. Elkhart in another 10 years, people are gonna be complaining about how rough it is because it's a street race. The mayor is not going to repave the entire track every 10 years. It financially doesn't make sense for the city. Financially doesn't make sense for a lot of other reasons. And as a kart racer, it's something you accept when you go into a street racing event.
Not just karting, but motorsport as a whole. I mean, look at everyone that has street racing. And
exactly.
It's bumpy. The only exception to this is F1 because they have state governments bankrolling this stuff. I mean, Singapore is insanely smooth.
Yeah.
Monaco is incredibly smooth. Azerbaijan.
We just need to get that. We need to get the F1 system involved in karting. That's the answer to all of our problems.
I was gonna say the F1 people need to embrace what sports cars, IndyCar, and karting, and stop having to repave this shit every year.
Oh man. Yeah, but I think people should just accept it. It shows who the real racers are out there. If you can't handle getting beaten and banged around a little bit, you probably don't deserve to be behind the wheel of a kart in the first place. So.
Are you sure? You're sure you want to say that? Dittmer might be listening, considering how last year went for him.
Well, I mean,
at least his first couple of heats.
I looked through some of the Facebook comments, and his wife kind of flamed him. So I'm staying out of that for now. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, it was it's funny. I think that's just about going to conclude this episode of Radio Kart, though, Nelson. There's one thing I wanted to say, but I can't think of it.
What?
At the moment. I can't think of it.
Well, that covers everything, although the show has dragged on for quite a while, 45 minutes plus. I think one thing that we kind of did consider talking about is maybe our own plans for 2018. We have addressed this, but not too much in depth. So would you want to talk about that, or do you think...
I mean, neither one of us, I think, have really a big clue about what we're doing in 2018, but my plan is to try and run Triple Crown, Triple Crown, Elkhart, Quincy, Rock Island, but and then do some 206 Cup stuff and club racing when I can and the Halloween Grand Prix at the end of the year, but that's my plan of what I would like to do for karting next year. I know you have a plan of stuff that you'd like to do, too.
I have a bit of a plan. I mean, it's always been I shouldn't say always, but lately it's been my goal to get into the 206 Cup. But considering the tires they run, I have not run those, so I think I need to get some experience on those. And then on top of that, it's like, it's expensive to travel. And when you look at grid size, because I'd probably end up running heavy in that, that's not in the best spot right now.
Yeah.
So when you look at, like I said, travel expenses, I don't really have the resources to go ahead and race everything. Like everything in the 206 Cup, all the Triple Crown events, Brickyard, and the Halloween Grand Prix. So I kind of need to shave that down a bit. What I'm leaning towards doing right now, focus on club, of course, do Rock Island and the Halloween Grand Prix, like I usually do.
Yeah.
On top of that, I need to do the Brickyard Grand Prix. And I also want to go out and I want to do Elkhart.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking since I'm already doing 2 of the 3 of your Triple Crown events, I might as well go and do Quincy and do the 206 events that I can.
The nice part about Quincy...
Let me speak, Joseph. Let me speak. God. I was almost done. I was just going to say, on top of all that, 206 Cup would not be my focus, but I'd probably do some local stuff like 61 when they come to visit, and Constant Polymer Speedway.
Yeah, I know. The nice part about Quincy for you guys is it actually isn't that far away.
Yeah.
It's what is it? How far away is it for you guys?
Can't be any more than 2 hours.
Exactly. So I think as far as like a national event to go to, that's not too bad. It's further away for the Quad City racers than this for you, and not that that's saying a whole lot because we're only 45 minutes away from you. But it'd be nice. It's not like Elkhart where it's like 3 or 4 hours away. It's only a couple. So that'll be a fun event, I hope. They got to get safe. That's what I'm crossing my fingers on. It's going to be a safe event because I've heard rumors about it. But I found out the other thing I wanted to say, and it was our kind of a little bit about our next show. I haven't filled you in on this yet, Nelson.
Oh, no.
So this will be a surprise for you. But I know we have listeners from time to time that come onto our show and are like, man, your guys' show is really interesting, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, what's a 206? What is Nelson? What is Grand Am? What is Yamaha? What is what is karting? What is racing? And so I think it would be good for our next show to fill people in on what karting is exactly, what some of the terms are, kind of an informational show, so to speak.
I like this. I like this idea a lot. Because I got to say, when I was first getting into karting, a lot of the message boards I found were people already established talking about this stuff. It was kind of difficult as someone who, I'm like first generation racer too, so it's not like I can go to my dad or something and ask about this stuff.
Exactly.
So it was kind of difficult to find this stuff. So no, this is perfect. I want to help people who were in that position too. So this sounds amazing.
Yeah, our next episode will be an informational episode. We won't be talking about any news. Oh, maybe we'll talk about a little news at some point. But our main goal will be to inform you about what some of the terms are we're using, what a class even is, because some of you might be like, oh my gosh, is there a grade school class? Is there a kindergarten class? I remember when I took math in 4th grade, that might be a class. No, we're going to explain this stuff to you, hopefully. Maybe we can get some other guys on the show that have, enlightenment or can explain things in better terms than maybe we can. We'll do some research for you, but our main goal will be to help get those who don't know a lot about karting to know more about karting. And when we talk about this stuff, they can go, that's what he means when he says 206.
Yeah.
Or that's what he means when he says Yamaha. Or that's what he means when he says he had a flat tire. I don't know.
Yeah.
That should be pretty simple to find out. Like, everybody knows what a flat tire is, you think. But, that'll be the main goal of our next episode. So
sounds good. When do you think we'll do that?
I don't know if your spring break and my spring break will align. Otherwise, maybe, I think you're around next week, right?
Yeah, no, I don't go back to school till the 16th.
So maybe it'll be coming up within the week here, and maybe we can get Mr. Old Man Pease to come on to the show.
Wow. So we're still doing the Old Man Pease thing. Okay.
Well, I mean, he
is older than us.
He is older than us. Dang, yeah. Carter can kick back and relax and have a beer with my dad while we do the show.
Oh my god. I'm trying to picture that now.
Until next time, so long, everybody. I'm Joseph.
And I'm the other guy.
Yeah, that's the other guy.
Yeah.
We'll see you for our second episode of 2018, possibly in the next week.
Yeah, we'll post this stuff on Facebook when we know more.